So you've probably seen that little halal logo on your food packaging, right? And you might have wondered what it actually means. A lot of people kind of assume it's just a basic dietary rule, no pork, no alcohol, and that's the end of it. But honestly, the reality is so much deeper and way more complex than that. What does a halal certification actually guarantee when it comes to how that food was raised, treated, and ultimately processed?
Well, let's dive right into it. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to unpack the rigorous, highly comprehensive, and profoundly welfare-focused world of Malaysia's halal certification. It is truly fascinating to see how these ancient theological principles translate directly into modern, global food safety standards.
We're pulling our insights directly from the official Malaysian Halal certification guidelines. Now, Malaysia's standards are strictly enforced by JAKIM. That's the Department of Islamic Development Malaysia, and they're primarily based on the Malaysian standard MS 1500. This is definitely not just a list of polite suggestions, it's a meticulously detailed protocol that literally governs every single step of the supply chain.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. Defining halal food standards. 2. Categorizing permissible foods. 3. The rules of halal slaughter. 4. Navigating filth and impurities. And 5. Hygiene and global certification. Starting off with Section 1, Defining halal food standards, let's establish our baseline here.
The absolute most crucial point to understand is that halal means permissible under Sharia law, and it acts as a really strict three-part guarantee. First, the food cannot contain any parts of animals that are forbidden or weren't slaughtered properly. Second, it absolutely cannot contain any ingredients considered filthy or najis. And third, and this is a massive one for modern manufacturing, it cannot be processed on equipment that is contaminated. We're talking about a total system of purity, literally from the farm to the factory.
Moving on to Section 2, Categorizing permissible foods.
Now, what's truly wild is the sheer specificity of prohibited land animals. It is so much more than just pigs and dogs. You can't eat fanged predators like tigers or bears. No predatory birds either. You can't eat animals that Islam specifically protects like bees and ants. And get this, notice the rule against amphibians. Any animal that lives on both land and in water, like crocodiles or frogs, is strictly prohibited. The categorization here is incredibly detailed. But then contrast all of that with aquatic animals, plants, and microorganisms. The rule here is beautifully simple. All aquatic animals, plants, and even things like mushrooms and microbes are halal, with just one major caveat. They cannot be poisonous, intoxicating, or hazardous to human health. Basically, if a fish doesn't kill you or make you sick, it's generally good to go.
But here is where ancient law directly collides with modern science. If we compare traditional livestock feeding to animals treated with biotechnology, the guidelines are super clear. If an animal is treated with products derived from non-halal sources, say through genetic engineering, that animal immediately becomes non-halal. Standard feeding is the exception, but otherwise, it's a strict no. It just goes to show how this certification is constantly adapting to the complexities of modern food science.
All right, Section 3, the rules of halal slaughter. This brings us to the absolute climax of the certification process, known as dhabihah.
Before a blade is even drawn, the animal's welfare is paramount. These standards heavily prioritize thayyiban, which means wholesomeness and safety. The animal has to be definitively alive and healthy. It has to be treated humanely. Any ill treatment, beating, or anything causing fear is strictly forbidden. The animal must even be provided with food, water, and rest in a holding area before the slaughter. Ethical treatment isn't a bonus, it's an absolute prerequisite. And this focus on welfare even extends to stunning. A lot of folks out there assume stunning is entirely banned in halal processing, but that's actually not true in Malaysia. Reversible, non-penetrative stunning is totally permitted to render the animal unconscious and minimize its pain. However, lethal stunning is strictly forbidden. If the stunning procedure accidentally kills the animal before the ritual cut, that carcass is immediately segregated. It's deemed non-halal.
Then, we have the profound spiritual element of the whole process. The slaughter has to be performed by a sane, mature, practicing Muslim who is officially registered and trained. And they must perform the act with a completely sincere intention, reciting this exact phrase, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. In the name of God, God is greatest. It ensures the whole act is done respectfully for a higher purpose.
Next up is the physical cut itself, which must be executed flawlessly. The slaughterer uses a razor-sharp, flawlessly clean knife. It has to be a swift, single, continuous motion. Absolutely no lifting the knife, no multiple cuts. And it has to precisely sever 4 specific anatomical structures: the trachea, the esophagus, both carotid arteries, and both jugular veins. The location is super specific too, right there on the neck, just below the Adam's apple. But wait. There is a really specific anatomical rule here you might not expect. Do not sever the spinal cord. Why? Well, because if the spinal cord remains intact, the brain can still send signals to the heart. This ensures the heart continues to beat vigorously, which actually aids in the complete and rapid drainage of blood from the carcass. Since blood is considered impure, getting as much out as possible is absolutely critical for the meat to be considered halal. Which perfectly transitions us into Section 4, Navigating Filth and Impurities. We're moving from the slaughterhouse down to the microscopic rules of hygiene.
So in Islamic jurisprudence, the concept of filth is called najasa. We're talking about specific substances like blood, human waste, or the saliva of a dog that physically contaminate things. Understanding najasa is foundational because halal foods simply cannot come into contact with it. If it does, a highly specific purification process has to happen. There are basically 3 distinct levels of this najasa you have to navigate. First is muhalaza, or severe impurity. This comes from dogs and pigs. To purify this, you literally have to wash the contaminated equipment 7 times, and one of those washes must with earth or a really strong modern detergent. Second is mutawassita, or moderate impurity, like blood or wine. You wash this until the color, smell, and taste are completely gone. And finally, mukhaffafa, or light impurity. What's fascinating here is the specific example given, the urine of an exclusively breastfed male baby. To purify this, you just have to sprinkle or spray water over the area.
And finally, Section 5, Hygiene and Global Certification. Let's zoom back out and look at how all these theological rules actually translate into global manufacturing. Because Islam places such a heavy emphasis on hygiene, these religious rules naturally align with modern food safety. The Malaysian guidelines explicitly require that food be processed under incredibly strict hygienic conditions. Premises have to follow good manufacturing practices and adhere to the Codex Alimentarius, which, if you didn't know, are the international food standards recognized by the World Health Organization. So at the end of the day, a halal certification is simultaneously a world-class food safety certification. And trust me, the auditing process is exhaustive. If a foreign establishment wants to export halal products to Malaysia, competent Malaysian authorities fly out and perform a massive site inspection. We aren't just talking about the slaughter itself. The examination covers preparation, handling, storage, the actual trucks used for transportation, and even the exact cleaning and disinfection management practices used on site. The guidelines spell it out perfectly right here. The examiner will only confer halal status when he is fully confident and is satisfied beyond any reasonable doubt. If there is even a shadow of a question about a contaminated conveyor belt or a stressed animal, boom, the certification is denied, no exceptions.
So that leaves us with a pretty big question to ponder. When you look at the strictness of the animal welfare rules, the surgical precision of the slaughter, and the completely exhaustive hygiene protocols, how do ancient religious frameworks parallel our modern ethical and hygienic food safety standards? It turns out that little halal logo you see at the grocery store, it actually represents one of the most comprehensive quality assurance systems in the entire world.